friends at Tivoli Brewing Company and the Department of Communication Arts and Sciences at MSU Denver, this is Unfiltered. And here are your hosts, Jay Schrader and Dr. Samuel J.
I
bet they've been hot the whole time.
Shane, will you hit the red button on that? Record this bad boy.
How'd record? Oh,
Crappers. You got a phone call?
It's my wife. Yeah, hang on.
Answer the call. It's all right. I don't need you for that. I basically run solo anymore. Jay. Jeez. All right. Hi, Judd.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How's it going?
So I've heard you've done podcasts before.
I have done a couple podcasts.
We've been trying to put this thing on record for a while, so I'm very excited about this. We're at. Will you say the correct pronunciation of?
It is Dos Luces Brewery.
Okay. And what's the location?
We're at 1236 South Broadway in Denver.
So basically just south of I-25 in Broadway.
You got it.
Okay. Thank you for having us. By the way, we should do a cheers, everybody. Get in there.
Cheers. Oh.
We're joined today by Shaner. Shane, what's your last name?
Dolan.
Okay. It's very Irish.
Mostly Irish.
Matches that beer.
I was going to say, that was a dead giveaway, wasn't it?
You guys kind of look alike. You got the same. Yeah, you do. You get a little bit more hair, but he'll lose it.
It's on its way out, I guarantee it.
Good to see you.
Judd's got a lot of hair, though.
Yeah. Let's assume that I post the previous interview before this interview. So let's hope this interview goes better than me ending that last interview.
Judd, when are you due?
That's an inside joke that people will get because we're going to promote it on social media.
Oh, yeah. If they let us actually produce and polish and drop the episode that I wasn't there for, everybody will get it in the long run.
I should never go anywhere by myself.
I've been telling you this for years.
Yeah, I need somebody to hold my hand. Okay, Judd, could you please introduce yourself, your first name, your last name, and where you're from?
Yes.
And your favorite movie.
Oh, is that a new one? That's a new lead-in.
Yeah.
All right. My name is Judd Belstock. I am the owner of Dos Luces Brewery, born and raised here in Denver. Favorite movie is Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, wow.
Throwback.
What about that little Tim Burton action?
Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate that. Okay, so this place is unique. It gets a lot of attention because of what?
Because we make all of our beers from corn.
Which means, okay, like for a beer drinker, what does that mean?
So most beers are made from barley.
Okay.
And most of what people think of as beers are made from barley. That said, the inspirations and recipes for beers like these go back at least 3,000 years.
Okay.
So what you're drinking right now is a modern interpretation of history.
Okay.
And might be the world's oldest beer style in some ways. So the styles are pre-Columbian. From the Inca and the Aztec.
Okay, that makes sense.
Made from malted blue corn is the main ingredient we use, so that's kind of our Colorado element.
Uh-huh.
And then maguey, which is a cousin of the agave plant. It's what mezcal's made out of.
Oh, okay.
So I actually got a smart question real quick. Okay. So if I understand kind of what you're saying, our understanding of beer in the Western world is very influenced probably by Europe, correct?
Very much so, yeah.
Is that because why? Like why?
Why is because that's
Historically, but
Yeah.
I mean, what are the factors that lead into that?
Conquest. It's all about conquest and cultural conquest as much as physical conquest. So the Germans wanted to conquer the beer world with the Reinheitsgebot, defining beer as, at the time, malted barley, hops, and water. Yeast added later. Once they realized that was a thing, and they kind of it was as much a trade law as anything else. It was a battle between the Southern Germans and the Northern Germans. The Northern Germans were throwing all sorts of stuff in their beer. In fact, if history had gone differently, the what we think of as like the Belgian styles, that would be Berlin. Berlin would be kind of the center of that world. But instead, the southern Germany won out, and those kind of what we think of as German styles now were made in a very specific part of the world, and they ended up taking over the world to where the German style Pilsner and styles that were derived from it are 90% of beers made in the world now.
But how does that happen, knowing that, I mean, Germany, I guess, didn't necessarily conquer nearly as much as Belgium did. So, is it the influence of Belgium more than?
No, it's the cultural influence,
Okay.
right? So specific to the Americas, it was really the beer conquest kind of happened separately from the
Like people
the physical
dying conquest,
So
yeah.
the Spanish came in first, obviously, and physically conquered the Inca and the Aztecs, and they did to some extent say, hey, what you're making, this corn stuff, it's not good for you. It's what you should be drinking is the stuff that we make, the beer. But they weren't as forceful about it as when the Germans and Austrians moved in. So Mexico is probably the best example of this. During the U.S. Civil War, Napoleon III took over Mexico.
Okay.
And installed his cousin as a puppet emperor, and he declared himself Maximiliano I, Austrian guy. Brought all of his friends in. They all started breweries. And
Seriously?
Shit,
yep.
dude.
And to this
Already
day,
my favorite
like,
interview
up
we've
until
Nerding out.
Anheuser-Busch and Heineken bought Modelo and FEMSA, the families still had ownership
They
stakes.
just passed it down generations.
Yeah,
Holy
so-
that's amazing.
So wait,
but
you're saying it's unfiltered for a reason. The reason why Modelo Corona sells so much in Mexico is not necessarily because that's traditional Mexican beer.
oh no, not at all.
It's because of a very European
Yeah,
influence.
no, it's Austrian style beer made in Mexico.
Made in Mexico.
It's-
Put a
I mean,
lime in it,
the,
huh?
The classic Mexican lager is the Vienna style lager.
Holy shit.
That makes sense, actually.
And actually, up until it's not really true anymore. But if I wanted to give somebody an example of a classic Czech pils,
Yeah.
Modelo Especial.
Yeah.
Not anymore. It's not as they've changed the recipe over the years, but like 10, 15 years ago,
Really?
I could pick up Modelo Especial and a Pilsner Urquell, and if
Comparable.
the Pilsner Urquell was on the older side and the Especial was on the newer side, you couldn't tell them apart.
Wow. Let me
but-
ask this
Yeah.
then. You're attributing a lot of this to conquest, and I think we're thinking more political and territorial conquest, but I got to wonder at the same time, how much was the religious part of the conquest
Yep.
Good question.
Absolutely.
influenced?
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean,
obviously the Roman Catholic Church especially, right, was very heavy into beer at one point,
Yep.
and obviously had, a minor hand in territory or
just a minor.
colonizing the new American territory. So, is it more the people in the political side of it, or was it the religious side of it, or both?
It's all of the above. I mean, it's it's the very broad term of conquest.
Okay.
It's taking subverting the culture, and drinking is a part of every culture.
Every culture, yeah.
So you don't just see it in South America and Mexico. I mean, it's happened even more recently in Africa, and you're starting to see even in parts of Asia where beer
Conventional modern beer.
Yep, is taking over, and almost always you'll hear kind of the same language of that homebrew stuff, that stuff that you're making, whether it's out of corn, maguey, sorghum, or rice. That's gonna make you go blind. You need to drink the stuff that's manufactured. And I mean it's big beer companies. It's Anheuser-Busch today, but yeah, it was
The Pope
yeah
500 years ago is basically what he just said.
Yep.
I gotcha. That's all right.
So knowing that, I mean, This is one of those interviews you already can sense could last like 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I've got to leave at 4.
Oh, that's your fault.
Let me ask. Okay, so let's just step things back. These kinds of beers are being made in modern day Latin and South America,
Yep.
North America, obviously. What are they? Can you explain them? Okay, so who's making them, and what is the purpose of those in those given cultures?
Yep, absolutely. So, they almost disappeared.
Okay.
Except, so Chicha. Let's start with that. Chicha is a Peruvian tradition, and really, in Peru, there's a separation between the cities that are near the ocean and then way up in the mountains, and so there's a little bit less kind of cultural contamination, and so Chicha has not thrived over the years, but it didn't nearly die off the way Pulque did.
Okay.
But Chicha is just straight corn beer, and something just came out at the end of December. Some pot chart evidence of a 3,000-year-old Chicha recipe made from sprouted corn.
Okay.
Sprouting, similar to malting, we use
Yeah.
malted corn, but as soon as early as 50 years ago, it wasn't unusual to make the corn fermentable by chewing on it.
Okay.
So
Really, as recent as 50 years ago,
Yep,
people
yep.
were
Yo-
producing
Yep.
a chicha from a mouth-chewed corn product.
Yep, Dogfish Head still did one. Did one.
Really?
Yep. Though they chewed a percentage of their.
Sure,
of
sure.
their
Just
malt.
enough to put it on the bottle, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
That we chewed on this. Yes. But this pot chart evidence that they were using sprouted corn 3,000 years ago got me to thinking, well, wait a minute, if the Spanish, so when you look at like the history of the Aztec, the Spanish exaggerated a lot of things. So yes, the Aztec did engage in human sacrifice, not nearly to the extent that the Spanish put it in the history books
Yeah.
and said these are savages and blah blah blah. It was ceremonial, and so like chewing and spitting in beer. That's another thing I can't say for sure, but it's another thing where could it have been exaggerated by the Spanish to kind of make this seem like something that you wouldn't want to drink?
Right. Right.
Especially since because the method of sprouting corn it's not that complicated. So
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's the Chicha side.
Okay.
So ours is a straight corn beer with clove. And when I looked at the 3,000-year-old recipe, it sure looked a lot like what we do.
Wow.
And then Pulque on the other side is an Aztec tradition made from maguey sap. So that's a cousin of the agave plant, depending on who you ask, either a cousin or a type of agave. But maybe we can take some pictures later. We've got some agave plants in the planter there, as well as an aloe over there on the right. If you picture that aloe plant, maguey is basically a 15-foot version of that.
Really? Like you're talking about aloe that my grandma used to grow on the
Oh,
windowsill for injuries and antiseptic.
Yep.
And it's the same thing. It's just a bigger.
Well, it's not the same plant, but but
okay.
it's
Visually,
it's
it's-
related, and
gotcha.
it looks just like that.
Visually.
In our picture right there, that's it. But basically, what you do to make pulque is you cut a hole in the bottom, and then the sap accumulates overnight. You take that out, do that again for about 30 days, and then you have enough for one batch of our pulque.
Do you grow it all? Like, do you use this stuff that's grown in here?
No, not yet.
No,
It's
okay.
not big enough yet.
Oh, okay, so-
Takes
okay.
about well, if we had a maguey, we have agave, but we don't have maguey. If we had a maguey, it takes about 15 years for it to
Okay.
mature.
Does it really? Okay, so
Yeah.
this is not a
So-
short,
No.
quick process.
Not a cheap ingredient.
Right. Well, yeah, I would say not.
And in Mexico, it would just be spontaneously fermented. Obviously, we can't do that here because it would be Denver spontaneous fermented instead of
yeah,
Mexico.
yeah.
So what we do is we try to kind of recreate the conditions of spontaneous fermentation inside the stainless steel tank.
Okay.
So we culture the bacteria directly from the maguey sap itself, which
You
we
need to
get
take
from
that
a farm
guy.
in Mexico. I think we're good.
Okay.
And then we use a yeast profile that matches what would be naturally occurring in the air in
Okay.
Mexico.
Okay.
So it's kind of a give and take between tradition and making something that's consistent.
So where do you get that then? Where do you get that?
Yeah, I was
The
gonna
maguey,
say-
we have a farm. We have connections with a farm in Mexico called Villa de Patos,
Okay.
and they send it directly to us.
Is that farm by design strictly or primarily there to produce this plant for pulque ingredients, or does the
Usually
plant
it's
itself mezcal? Okay. But it doesn't sound like that's your only, for lack of a better word, exotic ingredient. I mean,
Oh no, Peruvian purple corn.
that seems like something that's probably pretty easy to get.
Yes and no. There are some American growers of
Really?
purple corn. It's not as good. So we get it directly from we get it from Peru. But that requires that we order like weeks in advance,
Sure.
and that we buy an entire pallet at a time.
What are you sourcing locally? I mean, is there anything that you're manufacturing,
So
creating?
the main ingredient is the malted blue corn.
Okay.
And that's maltstress out of Wellington, Colorado. Grouse Malt House
Yeah.
specializes in gluten-free grains, and they basically malt blue corn just for us. And that's so blue corn is not the traditional corn used in Chicha, but we wanted to bring a local kind of a Colorado ingredient in, and so that's the main ingredient that we use in almost all of our beers.
And
Is that Karen's
Grouse
too?
is Karen.
Yep.
Yeah,
Grouse
yeah,
is
yep.
Karen at
Holiday,
Holiday Daily's provider, and I think it's Willow. Is that right?
Twilight.
Twilight.
Yep.
Sorry, hippie names.
So you and Karen are making that place just explode then. Obviously.
Keeping them in business at the very
We're
least.
definitely, it's, I've definitely heard a lot of people, not just gluten-free brewers,
Yeah.
but a lot of breweries across the country have contacted me about, hey, where can I get some
Trying to-
malted blue corn?
That's-
Back into it to get the corn
Yep.
hook up. Let me ask this. I mean, just because you mention it now, is your menu primarily gluten-free, or can you
100%.
give 100% gluten-free?
Yeah, we maintain a gluten-free facility.
by default, right?
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Well, yeah, basically, it wasn't something.
corn.
So I'm not a celiac.
Sure.
But it's one of those things that kind of 2 months into the homebrew experiments, I realized, wait a minute, we're making something that has no gluten products in it. Let's embrace this
Yeah.
and let's make the facility gluten-free.
Yeah. Makes
That's
total-
amazing. Yeah,
This, do we call it beer?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's delicious.
it's good, isn't it?
I mean, I really like it.
I've been in here before. We've talked about this.
Holy
I know that we
shit.
tried to do it once previously, and I was bummed that we couldn't make the interview work. So I'm glad
the
we're
space,
here with
dude.
Judd.
Did you see what was in the
with
back?
Judd.
No. There was Mexican soccer on in the back.
Oh yeah.
This might have to be our soccer
That
bar.
caught my eye first thing. So as
Do you
long
do
as he's-
soccer stuff here? Like, can
do,
we?
yeah.
As
come
long as
here?
he's opening at 6 a.m. a lot,
Yeah,
on
can
the
you?
weekends.
We tried it for the Women's World Cup last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple people showed up.
Yeah, I hate to admit it. Not in Denver. It doesn't happen as much as you'd like to think, unfortunately. So
Okay, so we talked about the history of everything. What's your relationship to the culture and to the beer? Like,
Yeah, so-
why?
Well, so my dad lived in Peru
Okay.
before I was born.
Peruvian, or did he just live there?
He just lived there.
Okay,
He was in the Peace Corps at the time.
Okay, gotcha.
So he drank this kind of stuff. And then I've been in the beer industry for now 19 years.
Oh, wow.
And as I got into the industry, my dad kept telling me, "Hey, you should try to make something like this. It was really good." And I met my co-founder about 16 years ago.
Okay.
And we started. His parents are Salvadoran and Cuban.
Okay.
So we started talking about Chicha specifically, and then we found this Pulque in a liquor store in Chicago. And it was in a can, and it was just awful.
I love how people are like, I can do this better.
Yep.
This tastes horrible.
Well, and there's reasons for that. Pulque is a living thing. It's unfiltered, and if you want to get something across the border, you got to pasteurize it.
Gotcha.
So basically, they're taking a living thing, killing it, and then who knows how long
Putting it in a
was sitting on
can,
that
yeah,
shelf.
and expecting it to sell. And
Yeah.
it could have been there a week. It could have been there 5 years.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
but we kind of got this gem of an idea. Especially this was kind of as sour beers were starting.
And what
to
year
take
was this?
off.
What year?
This was probably 10 years ago.
Okay,
So,
okay.
About 2010, somewhere
Okay.
around there. So it kind of played into the same flavor profiles as sour beers, but much more of a authentic American beer.
Yeah.
And this kind of started the whole discussion of, well, what is American beer? If we're just taking Western European styles and making them in American ways, then what's an American beer really?
Fucking melting pot anyway. Yeah.
And so that kind of led us to, American beer would involve corn, because corn is America, the
That's
Americas.
a good point.
And so let's look at these beer styles that come from corn and kind of see what we can do with it. And it was kind of just talk at that point. And then I left my job at Boulder Beer about almost 3 years ago now. No, 3.5 years ago.
Given what we've seen in the news lately, that doesn't seem like it was a horrible idea.
Good. Well, yeah, who knows? Maybe their fate would have been different.
Yeah, that's true. You could be running the damn show.
Were you homebrewing? Were you?
Yeah, I was homebrewing, and I had been homebrewing, and I actually hadn't. So let me back up. My co-founder is a professor of fermentation science at Cornell.
Okay.
So he knows his stuff.
Cornell University.
Yes.
In New York?
Yeah,
Yes.
not Cornell
Not
College
Cornell
in
College.
Iowa.
Sorry, Mark Boucher. It's not Cornell
Like
College
Ivy
in
League
Iowa. Yeah,
Cornell.
this is the real Cornell.
Yeah.
We have a friend who's doesn't actually get name dropped on the show very often, but he used to tell people in high school or senior year that he was going to Cornell,
They would just stop there.
and then he would stop, and I would have to interrupt the conversation and say Cornell College in Iowa.
Yep.
So just to clarify for everybody, Judd's partner is a professor of fermentation science at Cornell University.
Ivy League professor.
Yeah, like
Nice.
legit. The fact that Ivy League is doing fermentation science.
No, that's pretty crazy. That's mind blowing.
I would have never guessed it, frankly. I mean, could you imagine a Harvard MBA or a Harvard Master's in fermentation science? That's amazing. Go ahead and
Thank y'all. Sorry we stole him.
I'm a Harvard MBA, actually.
What?
Are you really? Oh, see, I did do my research.
You just got your degree from Metro, and I'm just a
Yeah,
professor
I
there.
I know. Are you really? So you're a Harvard MBA and you spent 20 years in the beer
We don't
industry.
research Judd at all. That's the entire
What's
premise
your-
of this.
What's your bachelor's degree in?
Economics.
What the hell? How'd you land in beer?
MBA.
I grew up in Colorado.
Good for
is
you.
the answer.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Keep asking questions.
Yeah, this is where the interviews actually always get a little bit better. So when Sam leaves, let's talk a little bit about the space, because I know that Sam's on a timeline, and I don't know. It's his equipment, frankly. So when he leaves, the mics go away. This is I imagine, a pretty tough strip of Denver to establish yourself as a brewery. So what's it like here on South Broadway? You've got a pretty established joint right down the street,
Yep.
and you're within a stone's throw of several well-known breweries. What's it like for you?
One less as of this week.
Yeah,
But,
we're not going to talk. We can talk about that, but
No reason.
yeah, I know where you're going with that, though. So, I mean, what have you had to do to differentiate yourself over here? I mean, you've obviously created a different product, so that's probably helpful on its own. But
I mean, the brewery down the street, Black Project. They're great. And between the two of us, we are definitely. This is probably the weirdest beer block
I
in
would
the country.
say, yeah. Talk about balance, though, right? It's like total night and day, yin and yang.
Oh yeah, totally. They've got a very well established kind of niche around spontaneous beers, and we've established our own niche around corn based beers,
Sure.
obviously. And I mean, I think so. To answer your original question, we're no Rhino, that's for sure.
Lucky, right?
Yeah, there's not the foot traffic, there's not the kind of the busyness, but there's also not 10 Barrel, Blue Moon, and kind of the larger breweries.
The magnets that have their own kind of atmospheric gravity that really pull people in. That are going to contribute to foot traffic into a smaller craft, lesser known, for lack of a better phrase.
I gotta hold on. Can I just back? Okay, so
Sure.
knowing that Broadway Station is coming in, I'm assuming you haven't brought up that while I was taking a leak question. Okay.
No.
How do you intend to market to that
Sam
space
always
in
has
person?
to bring it back to marketing.
No, I'm intrigued, right? Because you're very savvy people. You can already tell. So
The answer is we shall see.
okay.
So with the new apartments, we've been kind of trying to get in on their welcome packages
Yeah.
and getting in with their leasing offices and basically making them aware of us as much as anything. Most of the new apartments, they're really young, the people going into there. And we got the liquor store 2 doors down, so I know what they're buying. It's a case of PBR and a 12-pack of
Really?
White Claw.
It doesn't matter how good life is on South Broadway, living in the $1,200 a month studio apartment. You're still buying shitty beer, huh?
Yep.
Damn.
I mean, they're
It is. It really is.
They're in their 20s. So the hope is kind of as their tastes
Mature.
develop and as they mature, they'll start moving and coming in here more often. So we'll see. I've heard a few different things about Broadway Station. One, I heard a rumor that there's not going to be any restaurants there.
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah, yeah.
If it's just retail with no restaurants, then the pull has to come this way.
Okay.
There's also going to be offices, and so that would also be great because there's not a lot of people who work around here, and people who do work downtown drive right on past.
Yeah, they're ready to get home to the burbs.
Yeah.
I hate to admit it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'd be nice to be able to kind of get that happy hour crowd going.
Makes total sense.
And office parties, things like that. We have a great space in the back that we rent out.
That was my first experience here. Was an office party. It was a company. It was more of a professional gathering, so to speak. We had a legitimate meeting here, but I'd always been on my radar, and I came in for a meeting and been back. Yeah, go ahead, please. Our illustrious host Judd is actually serving right now because he's, one-man show today. But Sam, I mean, what an amazing place to grab a beer, right?
Comfortable in
here.
here.
It's quiet. It's peaceful.
Grab your mic, Shane. You gotta add to
Weigh
it.
in on this.
Yeah.
The Mad Irishman here.
I wouldn't quite say I'm mad, but yeah, the decor is really nice too, with all these big paintings on the wall.
Yeah.
But it's not like you come in here. Like I could work here.
Yeah.
Like, if they open at noon, and I don't want to drink yet, or drink like a low ABV beer, I could work for a couple hours.
And also,
easily.
I was looking earlier on their board over there. It says they do like a stand-up night, an open mic night. They also have like a lotteria night on Sundays, I think it was. Yeah.
So apparently
there's
it's
all-
a
there's
big
other-
thing now in Denver.
yeah.
All
What
these
is-
breweries are having
Comedy?
open mic comedy nights. They're doing it. You guys have a comedy night? Open mic night?
Thursday
See,
nights.
yeah. Like, Denver's a huge comedy city, and this is obviously one of the spots.
It's a good place to. I guess it's a good place to test your comedic chops.
We were just talking about how cool it is to be in here. So, yeah.
The-
Yes, he nods his head. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he gets it. He's like,
I mean, we
What the hell
designed
do
the
you
space
think?
to make it like very community friendly.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got the back area that you can kind of have your semi-private party back there. We got the front area with the tree.
the guard. Yeah, the
So do
garden
you
stuff
can
is
open up those doors,
amazing.
obviously.
and
They
we
open
up
up
the
and
doors in the
yeah.
summer, yeah. And then, I mean, all of the brewing equipment is right out in the open.
Okay.
Pain to keep clean, but
Oh, I'm sure.
but it's kind of like it's that idea of making sure that people know where their food comes from. It comes from right there.
Yeah. That's cool.
You can see it.
So you mentioned food, and I know that you guys have previously had a very good relationship with a local establishment that may or may not be named. Feel free to share with us if you'd like. But there's a craft foodery, we'll call it, right around the corner. Do you guys have a good relationship with that place?
Craft foodery.
I'm thinking of Maria Empanada.
Yeah, we have a great
I mean,
relationship.
you guys can
So,
order off the menu here, right? And
Yeah.
yeah.
If they're not too busy and they've got 2 people working, you can call in and sometimes they'll just bring it on over.
That's awesome.
But we actually recently this month will be the first one, started doing empanada making classes with them.
I saw that on your Facebook
And,
feed.
January sold out in a week.
Really?
February sold out in 3 days. March sold out
Holy
in 48 hours.
shit!
Jeez.
So we're on April now.
And people come in here and they're making empanadas in here and drinking your chicha and your pulque.
Yeah, I think we're going to switch off every other month. So the first one's going to be here, second one's going to be there, and we'll just bring growlers over for the tasters.
That's awesome. And you're just showcasing each other's establishments, whether it's the sit-down component of it or what goes on behind the scenes. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Maria Empanada, if you haven't been.
I've never been. Isn't that
Holy
terrible?
shit. I think I'm going to just grab a bag full on my way out of here,
I
by
think
the
I
way.
need to.
I had one right before you. Shut up.
So,
and we've done beer dinners with Adelitas, with La Chiva, We're working on one with Que Bueno Suerte. It's not too far away.
Nice.
A new restaurant, Somebody People, vegan food, just opened up across the street. We want to work with them at some point soon. Turtle Boat, we're going to probably do a beer dinner with them in late February.
That's
early
the
March.
Pulque place down the
Yeah.
street, right?
Yeah, they're going to they'll come in and do some cooking here.
Sweet.
Cooking. It's all
Right.
raw.
It's all raw, right? What are they cooking? It's just in a big cooler.
Yeah. And we've had some chefs come in and kind of do pop-ups as well.
That's awesome. So I guess that begs the question. I mean, you really can't pull off a true food truck option here.
We can, but why should we?
Yeah, showcase
I mean,
everybody
with
else.
Mariz right there,
Yeah.
it's cheaper than most food trucks and just as good, if not better.
Probably better. Yeah.
And don't have to deal with the hassle of.
You don't
They
have to.
show
You
up,
don't have
do they
to
not
deal with
show
the food
up?
truck
Yeah.
guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Yep, we have had food trucks for special events and things like that, and I like having them every once in a while. But a daily food truck makes no sense.
That makes. I mean, I get it. So let's talk business for a second. Can you distribute this? Do you want to distribute it? Do you want to get in bars? Like what happens now?
Yeah, I do. The right ones.
Okay.
It's
So
gotta
yeah,
be-
what are the right ones?
So we're at Adelitas.
Okay.
With we have our Pulque Metzli. So it's a nice mix because they've got a fantastic tequila and mezcal list, and we've been talking about potentially doing like a flight, a tequila three drink flight, a tequila, a mezcal, and a pulque. So you can kind of taste the various stages of agave essentially.
Okay.
That's a sweet idea.
That is. That's really
And,
cool.
we're also at Que Bueno Suerte. They're keeping us on as a rotational beer, and D-Bolt. D-Bolt and Raíces actually both keep us on as gluten-free options.
Oh, that's sweet.
And talking to Karen over at Holidaily, I don't think this is true anymore, but when they were kind of getting started, their number one customer type was other breweries that needed a gluten-free option because people expect it these days.
I would venture to guess that's actually probably still pretty close to true for them.
Yeah.
So, Denver's a fickle mistress when it comes to beer and craft beer and our ever-changing hard seltzer palate. Is it sophisticated enough to support this and grow into a place where you're distributing a little bit more into breweries and other tap handles and other bars?
I think so.
Okay.
So all our tastes. I mean, you've tasted a few things here. It's all very different. So from the pulques, which are more like a sour beer, but the kind of the pulque metzli and the coffee chocolate pulque on the milder sour side, more like kind of intro sours versus the prickly pear Moctezuma, our imperial sour, which is intense, and I would put it up with any spontaneously fermented beer. It's got a ton of complexity and flavor.
I'm buying one of those.
That's
on the way
kind
out,
of
by the way.
the extreme
For the
end.
car?
Yeah.
You're gonna
And
buy
then,
one for the car.
and then kind of on the I liken the chichas to like a saison. They've got a lot of flavor, but it's clearly different from like a sour. It's just it's got that the kind of bubble gum and floral aromas going for it, but overall it's pretty dry, easy drinking. Then there's Tepache, which is kind of almost the lager or wheat beer. It's pretty easy drinking. It's got that a fruit flavor to it, but most of the sugars from the fruit get fermented away, so it's again pretty easy. And then at the furthest end of easy drinking is the agua fresca, made from just straight Peruvian purple corn and lime. We don't make a seltzer, but
Good.
that fills that would be
that checks the box.
yeah,
there.
it fills that need, but in a much more craft way.
Sure.
This is going to sound like this is a loaded question. It's not a sound like it just is. Can you get traditional beer like this into a Mexican restaurant in town? Is that a goal?
Yes.
Okay.
That's definitely a goal.
Beyond the couple
Like,
that you're in already.
fuck,
I
like,
mean.
Yeah.
I don't want a Modelo. I want one of these. You know what I'm drinking?
I mean, they've been a lot trickier than I thought.
Yeah,
Really?
I bet.
Because it's just tough to take that Pacifico tap handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They know that they're going to sell a keg a week of that stuff.
Yeah.
Shit,
And for
that's
something that's
challenging.
basically unknown, it's tricky. So I mean, it's about kind of finding the places like Adelitas and Que Bueno where they want to serve something
Yeah.
more authentic, and they want to introduce their customers and have an educated white staff that's going to be able to talk about it. Then there's the other challenge of like the real Mexican restaurants. A lot of them don't have liquor licenses, so that's the trick there. I'm within the next few months, I'm hoping to start bottling our Chicha Morada.
Okay.
And use that as an intro into places like that.
Okay.
Again, it'll be very limited because it's hand bottled. We don't have bottle line. We have me and my.
So do you go to like
assistant.
high-end Mexican restaurant? I mean, you could go to like was it Tamayo downtown? Have you tried there?
I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, that
We
sell out there.
through last summer our issue was we didn't have enough kegs
Okay.
to fulfill. But now I think we kind of balanced that and have enough kegs and a few more sixtels. So we should be able to start getting a few more out there. I would still probably cap it at a dozen, maybe 20 accounts because of our capacity.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So
I'm honestly genuinely amazed by how awesome this place is.
It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, this is awesome.
I'm gonna take us down a different
Yeah, go
road for a minute. Judd's super excited. I can tell too. You can see the smile on his face and the twinkle in his eye. Not comparing, because you're beer, right? But comparing your product to traditional mainstream beer, it brings up an important question that I want to address. That's a little more serious than we actually get on this show frequently. But you penned kind of an open letter to GABF and the what is that? The brewer? That's not the Brewers Guild. The Brewers Association. Shortly after the scores were released, and you received your individual results and remarks for the brewery and your submissions. Tell us a little bit about what your frustration, for lack of a better word, was with the GABF and the judging.
Yeah. I mean, as much as anything, the issue is we don't have a good category that we can enter in.
Okay.
So we've entered 2 years now. The first year we entered into the categories we're supposed to enter in, historical and experimental.
Okay.
Terrible.
Really?
Terrible
Just
results.
did
there.
not get good.
Within those categories, it just seems like the judges were looking for something more beer, more
European and traditional?
Yeah.
Okay. I wondered.
And so this last year, I took a different strategy and entered in categories I'm not supposed to enter in, like gluten free.
Okay. Why wouldn't you? I mean, why would you not be expected to enter into gluten free?
It's a little dicey because the rule is if you historical and experimental are the only categories you're allowed to enter in if you don't use hops.
So you kind of challenged the status quo a little bit this year.
There's wiggle room because like you can enter gluten-free historical beer, which is what we did. So I think we still stayed within the bounds, but it's kind of a weird way of going about it. But I entered in gluten-free. I entered in strong barrel-aged beer, or wood-aged beer. I entered in mixed culture Brett, and pumpkin beer.
Did you have a pumpkin? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our pumpkin spice Chicha is amazing.
I bet.
I hate pumpkin beers.
I wish I had known about the pumpkin.
That's your jam, buddy.
It'll be back for
Dude,
for,
You and Carrie and Kayla
October
from
next year.
the Tri-Delts.
Yeah. I'll put on my knee-high brown leather boots and my Han Solo puffy vest every time.
You set, yes.
Jeez, every time the PSL gets dropped.
Yeah.
Like July 31st, I think now. So
Yeah, we did it that early last year to make sure we had it for GABF, but we're not doing it this year. It'll be in October release.
All right.
But so and this year definitely wasn't as much of a disaster.
Really?
We definitely got some really good comments. We even made it to the final table in the gluten-free category with one of the beers that we entered in that category. The other one was was deemed to be out of category, in miscategory, whatever.
Miscategorized?
Yes.
Basically, they were like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you care?
Do I care? Yes, because it costs money to enter.
Okay.
So
All right.
that's the core of the issue is it costs money to enter. Your odds of winning a medal are low to begin with, and then you take styles that that don't really fit.
Yeah.
And your odds are even lower.
Yeah.
So basically, with those odds stacked against us, I wrote this Facebook post, and with all apologies to Andy Sparhawk, who
We don't know that guy.
he's
We know Andy. We know him.
it wasn't intended to be to say, hey, Brewers Association sucks. It was intended to say, hey, this just doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I penned a closed letter with the same thing to Chris Williams over at the Brewers Association.
Okay.
And he wrote back and said, hey, here's the process for making things change.
Sure.
Here's the survey that you can take. It was in November of last year. It was already too late for them to change anything
To weigh in
for
2020.
But I'm gonna be working with them to try and change things for 2022 and see if we can get a category in there that makes sense for us.
So can a Brewers Guild, can a Shawnee Adelson kind of help? Like, can you go to her and say, we need you to kind of move some muscle for this kind of thing, or no? Like the Colorado Brewers Guild can't do much.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, we're so lucky here that the Brewers Association is 30 miles away.
Yeah.
And that they can just come over here and try the beers. And
that's a good point. There's not really a middleman.
Yeah.
You're not gonna fight it much more than you have to.
And I mean, I think they've been great. They've been helpful. I definitely don't have a bad thing to say about the BA.
Go tend to your customers.
Yeah,
real quick.
I'm gonna wrap it up though, because I've got to go.
All right.
Okay, we're gonna let Judd. He'll come back. Say goodbye. What did you take away from this interview? I do have to go because I told my wife I'd be home. My pregnant wife.
You're sure she's pregnant?
Yeah, she seems to.
Did
be.
you ask?
Yeah.
Were you there?
We're talking. She's thinking maybe next weekend for the baby.
Okay.
So your brother's visit.
The motherfucker won't even tell me what his dates are. So,
Poor Shane.
man, my takeaway, honestly, it's a unique place. It's different. It's special, not because it's different, but because they're doing something special here.
Look, I think you go into a Tivoli and you see Shane's beard and you get really intimidated when you're sitting at the bar. And you're like, God, this guy's a fucking prick with his beard.
Yeah, he's got that hipster bartender craft
exactly.
asshole thing.
I don't feel
going
that
on.
here. I don't feel that here.
I tend to rub it in a little bit too.
Yeah. No, I don't have anything non-alcoholic, but a distributor gave me this sample Groovy. Would you like to try this? I don't even have to charge you for it.
Just please drink it. Get it out of it.
Just get it out of my fridge. No. It's very unimposing. It's very approachable.
Yes.
And Judd certainly doesn't make you feel like a dipshit.
No, my God, I had no idea he went to Harvard.
Yeah, actually, I didn't either, frankly.
Did you know that?
No.
Well,
Didn't come off
what
that
the
way.
hell good are our guest DJs if they're not going to do the research for us? Heads up next time, will you?
I should put a little bit more
Exactly.
research in. I'm
Put
sorry.
a little more effort into it.
Well, he's going to pour some drinks. We'll do a cheers, the three of us.
Dude, by the way, the NA
There we go.
Pulque or Chicha was rad.
I'm going to have another one of these once we're done. Before I
Cheers.
leave,
I
but
thought you had to go.
I do, but I want to ask him off the record questions, which
You know
usually
the-
last like 20.
The bad news
You
is
okay?
I know how to track your wife down.
We want the money, no funny stuff. Okay, get over here right now. Los
I'm here. I'm here. Los
Dulces?
Dulces.
How did he pronounce it?
Sam's
Los Luces.
Yeah.
Luces. But he said it in a very nice kind of Spanish accent. We didn't do
That's
that.
assuming something.
No, it was.
It was
good.
an ethnic appropriate accent.
That dude's as white as us. That's
whiter.
Not like, exactly. My point being, get down here. Like, this place is awesome. Judd, what are the hours?
4 to 10 Tuesday through Thursday.
4 to 10, Tuesday through
4
Thursday.
to 10 Friday, noon to 10 Saturday, noon to 9.
Can you repeat that?
Just go to the website.
Exactly.
LosLucesBrewery.com or
Very,
something
very
similar
great.
to that.
Good beer.
Yeah. Yeah, come on in. Pulque,
Yes.
Chicha, good
All right.
beer.
Thanks, Jay. Good to have you
Thank
back.
you, Samuel.
Shaner, thanks for joining, buddy.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks,
care.
Yep.
There he is.